The views and opinions of this broadcast do not reflect the views and opinions of Armed Media, New Productions and its affiliates. Enjoy the show.
Teflon Pan Man. I'm the Teflon Pan Man. Ain't nothing gonna stick on me.
See, a year that, I don't know, most of us weren't really looking for. Well, we were looking for it, we were looking forward to it, but it turns out to be a year that we're going to remember as, not a great year. Anyway, but that's besides the point, because our job this evening on episode number 90 hours of fun here on All You Can Eat. Our job this evening is to talk about things that are delicious, things that are that make us happy. Episode 90, All You Can Eat live. And when I say live, it's because I literally do this live, meaning that whatever errors, mistakes, technical glitches, fuck-ups, problems, etc., happen, you get to listen to from now through the end of history, as long as this podcast stays somewhere in the world. Whatever happens this evening is what gets recorded in perpetuity. And when I say where it stays somewhere in the world, all 90 episodes of All You Can Eat are currently available on iHeartRadio and on Spotify, and these are the two largest platforms in the world. So if they don't disappear and they decide to keep all the content that they have currently, this very evening, this is the 16th day of September 2020, will live on forever. So let's make it special, my friends. Let's make it special. Let's make it delicious. This evening we talk about a number of things here on episode 90. A few recommendations, because I think those of you who have heard me before know that I am the recommender. Rob, the recommender. Rob, your recommendation engine, because, well, I've seen things, I've tasted things, I've been places, I've been exposed, I've been sent, and so I'm in a position to offer you, at no cost to you and no reward for me, a list of things, products, places, foods, etc., that I like and recommend. And I'm only interested in recommending the things that, I know you're really going to like. I have no stake other than that. My integrity. So we open up this evening with a few things. One is a company called Simple Mills. They make great products. I love their crackers. If you're in the supermarket and you see Simple Mills, you'll see, 10 different products that they make. Their rosemary sea salt crackers are good. I just had this evening the tomato basil. The crackers is really, they have some sprouted things, but they have gluten-free, which, as I've said before, I'm not like a gluten-free guy, but the thing about gluten-free products I've discovered is that they're crisper than product. I go on now. Okay. What I generally like to do on Wednesday evenings is begin with a little bit of an adult beverage. Now this evening, I'm going with the gin and the tonic because I am not willing to give up summer. And officially, summer lasts for another, 4 days or so. But I know that we're already into kind of like the fall season. But the fact of the matter is, I think the official end of summer and beginning of fall is right around 20 or 21 of September, so we got 4 days or so. Gin and tonic is a classic summer drink, and while I would have had a martini, I ran out of Lillet, and that is recommendation number 2 this evening, a product called Lillet, Lillet. an aperitif, a slightly sweet aperitif coming out of France. And why Lillet? Because while you could potentially drop a little Lillet in a glass of ice before dinner and feel good about it, its inherent sweetness from grapes, some people don't like the sweet and actually begin their meal with an aperitif of a glass of, dry vermouth or a very dry white wine. But the thing about Lillet, and I mention it in this context, is because for those of us who enjoy a good martini, I would say three things. One is that if you order a martini, please understand that a martini is made with gin. Like if you just go in and you go have a martini, the assumption is from any bartender that is a classicist, any bartender who understands, a martini was originally and continues to be a gin-based product. There's a little bit of vermouth in it. Call it a day. Those dry vermouth. Those are your two ingredients that constitute a classic martini. Some people will put in olives. Some people will put in a twist of lemon. I happen to be a enjoyer of both the lemon and the olives. I like my martini dry, which is to say there is a very little bit of vermouth in it. The classic ratio is 2 or 3 parts of gin to a part of vermouth. I don't need that much vermouth. I'll tell you how much vermouth I would like in my very dry, extra dry gin martini. I would like enough vermouth so that when you pour the vermouth into the glass and stir it around, the next thing you do is you pour out that vermouth and just leave what remains draped on the interior of your glass. The rest gets filled with ice cold gin. Top it with a little bit of lemon and a little bit of like the olives, and there you have a gin martini. Now you can also order a vodka martini, so the gin is replaced with vodka for those people that don't appreciate the fabulosity of gin. And then there is, my friends, the Vesper. Vesper, otherwise known as the James Bond Martini, where the vermouth is replaced with Lillet. Lillet. Gonna run you $25 for the quart bottle of Lillet that you get white Lillet. Blanc, actually, B-L-A-N-C, French for white, that you can find at any liquor store, pretty much. And what I love so much about the Vesper, or the James Bond Martini, is the proportion, is the ease of making it for those of us who appreciate gin and don't mind vodka and would like a little bit of sweetness versus dryness. This is the greatest martini in the world for me as far as I am concerned. The Vesper Martini is 1 part gin, 1 part vodka, 1 part Lillet, shaken or stirred, it doesn't make a difference, over ice. But if you're going to do it, let it ice. It wants to be super ice cold. 1 part gin, your London gin, the best. 1 part vodka, any kind you like. All vodka is basically the same. Don't listen to anything anybody else has told you because they don't know. And then 1 part of Lillet Blanc that brings a little bit of sweetness to it. And I'm going to tell you something, man. That is the ultimate martini, and you can serve that rather than with olives. You can serve that one with a nice slice of orange. Which brings me to the third recommendation this evening, which is the slice of orange. For my whole life, if I were going to have a gin martini, it would have had, a gin and tonic, it would have had gin. Whatever kinds you like. Beefeater is good. If you're making a martini, Tanqueray is lovely. Whatever your favorite gin is, you don't have to. Anyway, gin and tonic. Tonic is important. I like the Schweppes. I'm sure the Canada Dry is fine. Fever Tree is the fancy one. I don't particularly love it. So I'm happy with a decent gin, a nice, fresh bottle of tonic water from your people at Schweppes. And for my entire life, I had been using a nice quarter of a chunk of fresh squeezed lime. It makes a beautiful drink. However, I couldn't help but notice that my friends in Spain were having gin and tonics filled with different kinds of fruit, most especially orange. And so I began to substitute orange slices in for the lime, and it's great. And then when I ran out of orange, I noticed that I happened to have had some of those clementines. I cut one of those in half and used that. So, ladies and gentlemen, here's to you as I have a little sip of a gin and tonic with a slice of orange. Next, I think we should talk about a couple of things that I have been finding delicious of late because I have been making them. And we start with gazpacho, and I'll tell you why. If I had to name all of my favorite, my top 5 soups, I'm not entirely sure that gazpacho would not end up on my list. And yet, my friends, in this time of the year, and I come to you from the eastern end of, the beautiful eastern end of Long Island, New York, where, well, the entire island at some point was nothing but a giant 100 miles of farmland. But anyway, I come to you from a place where tomatoes have been grown for a long time. We get very good tomatoes, and while they peak generally around August, they're kind of fantastic through September. So when you get your hands on a whole ton of tomatoes, one of the things you do is, well, you slice them, you put them in your sandwich, you slice them together with a nice fresh piece of mozzarella cheese, or as the folks like to call it, the mozzarella. And if you have one fresh basil leaf and some olive oil and salt, you have a caprese. Just a fantastic salad. It's just tomato and fresh mozzarella and basil, olive oil, and salt. That's magic, you know. Anyway, if you have a ton of tomatoes, and I do, one of the things you do is you make gazpacho. Now, I will say that as a professional cook, I've always promoted the idea that there's a couple of things that you should make yourself no matter what. There are things that I simply will not buy because I always think you're better off making them yourself. One of them happens to be tomato sauce. There's just for me, it's too easy to make your own great tomato sauce. You don't need fresh tomatoes. You need a can of Italian, plum tomatoes, whatever. But I think you should always make your own tomato sauce because it's easy and fantastic. And I think you always make your own salad dressing, your own vinaigrette. That said, at the end of tomato season, I'm in the position where I'm able to procure half a bushel of tomatoes. And even if I told you that a half a bushel weighed, I don't know what it weighed because it depends on the heaviness of the tomato, I don't know, 25, 30 pounds. I count them. There's somewhere between 40 and 50 tomatoes I get at a time in a box. And when you have that many tomatoes, you make 3 things. You do that tomatoes, with the better looking ones, you do that caprese, a big fat slice of tomato, with a lovely slice of your fresh mozzarella, and maybe a basil leaf and olive oil and salt. Life is good. Some people make, tomato sandwiches. I get it, right? You got a nice piece of baguette, and whether or not you toast it and rub it with garlic and olive oil, it's with a lovely tomato, maybe a piece of cheese, maybe a slice of prosciutto or ham or turkey, whatever you love, that's good too. But I will say that when you have 50 tomatoes in your house, in addition to making tomato sauce and your tomato salad, one of the things you make is gazpacho. Now, what I will tell you is that in going to French cooking school, lesson number 1, this was shocking to me since it was French cooking school, and gazpacho is not French, it's Spanish origin. But I think lesson number 1 was gazpacho. Number 1 known as gazpacho, and it had nothing to do with the origin of the dish. It had everything to do with knife skills, because our job was to understand how to use a knife. And so that entailed cutting up the tomato into very small pieces and all of the other ingredients. And those other ingredients are a cucumber that you've peeled, and they are a green or a red bell pepper, and they are an onion, generally a red one in this case. And when you have an onion, and you have peppers, and you have cucumbers, and you have tomatoes, you basically have all the ingredients you need for a gazpacho, minus, some salt, some olive oil, and some vinegar. Vinegar meaning that it could be red wine. Better if you have sherry wine vinegar. It gives you a little bit more, Spanishness. And I have discovered the absolute best way to make gazpacho, which is to chop up my tomatoes, and to chop up my cucumber, and to chop up the peppers, and to chop up the onion. And I add in a clove of garlic, super important. And it all goes into a blender. And like 8 seconds later, you take that out, and you add in salt, some pepper if you like. You put in a bunch of olive oil and some vinegar, and you have glorious gazpacho that you're advised to kind of leave in the refrigerator until it gets cold for half an hour or so. If you're the kind of people that like a little bit of, a little extra spice, then you could throw in a jalapeno or a serrano or a hot pepper or some red pepper flakes, and you're done. Gazpacho, cold, tomato soup, fabulous. Now, speaking of summer cooking, seafood. Fish, sure, but I want to talk a little bit about seafood because I raised the question of what is your favorite raw food. Now you can't eat chicken raw, and we don't eat pork raw. But when you think about your favorite raw food, it could be a strawberry. I'm not saying it can't be, or a grape, or a piece of watermelon. I'm talking about the stuff that we would typically, traditionally cook. Like, for example, if you're a meat eater, you may go for steak tartare. You may go for raw, chopped steak. Love it. Love it. I grew up on it. You get a good enough piece of meat, you don't have to worry about cooking it. You can just grind it up raw, put a little salt on it, and you've got deliciousness. If you're in the seafood family, if you're a sushi person, for example, right, there's all types of fish and seafood that you eat raw, whether it's raw tuna or fluke or any of those. I happen to love. Well, I love it all, but I'm just saying. Even squid, even raw, squid to me is fantastic. So think about it. And I'm going to throw a couple of things onto the list. What the greatest, one of the thing, no spice, no seasoning, no addition, no heat, no nothing. Raw clam. Even a raw oyster, you could argue, is a thing of beauty on its own. So you have clams, you have oysters. I'm going to tell you my favorite raw food in the world is a scallop, a raw scallop. I remember the first time that I had it was in Portland, Maine, at a place that was kind of like a divey local oyster bar. They served scallops. They came out. They were raw. I had a bite. They served it with a little bit of like a cocktail sauce, which you could use or not use. The thing I noticed about the scallop was the sweetness of it, number one, the taste of the sea, number two, and that it melted in my mouth. And so this evening, ladies and germs, I was able to get my hands on some raw scallops, and I served them raw, crudo. You could put a little bit of olive oil, a little bit of salt, a squeeze of lemon or lime, call it a day. This evening I went with some fresh ginger and soy sauce and a squeeze of lime as a little bit of a dressing or so for raw scallops, one of the greatest foods that there is in the world. Now, as we move on here, let's talk about a couple things. First of all, we're 6 months into the hell of a pandemic. Everybody's tired of it. Nobody wants to do it anymore. People are sick of it. You want to get out of your house. You're tired of everything. You hate everybody. This is what 2020 is going to be remembered for. So let me take you through a piece called The 7 Ways the Pandemic Has Changed How We Shop for Food, an article in the New York Times. Oranges, and by the way, I'll tell you right in advance, oranges and frozen foods are being snapped up. Coronavirus, everybody had to adjust and spend more time in their kitchen. For the first time, Americans spent more time and money at the supermarket than at other places where someone else was making the food. 6-month shift, a behavioral scientist's dreams. We started to, fill up the pantry. We got into the nostalgia phase with Lucky Charms and Little Debbie's and whatever else your nostalgia food is. And then we started to get more into complex cooking, and then everybody had to make some kind of sourdough bread. And I don't know, everybody was doing, it was a whole different book. I gave a half a dozen kind of online classes into cooking at home during the pandemic. And I know that I certainly have never, and I cook all the time, but I mean, this is now, it's like beyond all the time. You can't go anywhere, so I'm cooking all the time. Double time. And when then you have to have a strategy in terms of how you're going to get food. And some of it involves going out into the world. If you're lucky, you can get to go to an outdoor place, a farm stand, or a market, or whatever kind of thing. If not, I've also been to, Costco, because, I am the Costco hoe. And so here are the 7 ways at this point in our history that the way that we shop for food has fundamentally changed. Number 1, trips are fewer, lists are better. The need to avoid infection has taught people how to get by on fewer trips to the store and make really better shopping lists. People are shopping with purpose, so the number of trips has gone way down, but the size of the basket has gone way up. 19% of Americans before the coronavirus shopped for food more than 3 times a week. That number has dropped now to half of that. So, before the pandemic, people were going into stores, deciding what it was they wanted to make for dinner that evening. That has changed. Now we go in to our stores, whether it's a food co-op or a Costco or a Trader Joe's. We know what we want. We've become better planners, more aware of what it is that we want, and more purposeful about what it is that we choose to shop for. That is true. And I've certainly ordered a ton more online. Spices, I've had stuff come in here from, I've had meat, I've had seafood, I've had fish. I'm thankful for FedEx and UPS. I consider them frontline workers. Online aisles are bustling. Online shopping was around 3% of grocery sales back in a year ago, and now we're looking at a $7.5 billion business. Millions of people are cooking, and they've gotten used to, getting stuff delivered at home. So, Amazon for sure. Now, Walmart last week announced that they're doing a subscription service that gives you same-day delivery on 160,000 items. Instacart we use is more than doubling its workforce. And then you have new services popping up. You have curbside pickup. You have, that's also exploded. Whole Foods are opening up kind of stores that do nothing but pick up and deliver. Farmers are doing their thing, offering up the number of online orders for farmers is 10 times what it was last year. So that's fundamentally changed. Number 3, I don't know how I missed this, but apparently orange is the new snack. Produce sales riding high, up 11%, but for some reason, oranges. 73% more oranges sold than the same period in 2019. Don't know why. It can't just be because people want a good, cocktail. It's why oranges are up is beyond me. People like natural products. I like a good orange. It's on my top 5 of fruits, but I don't understand it. But I see that it's happening. People are ordering a ton load of oranges. Redrawing the store. Number 4, pandemic shopping has ushered in wider aisles, new methods of sanitation, less crowded stores, and shopper want these changes to stay. Respect for my people over at Costco. They let in a certain number of people. They let in older people earlier. They're serious about it. That people don't want to wear a mask, they throw them out. So fundamentally, the way the store has changed. So you've accelerated. You go. The cashiers have those plastic things around them. They make it easy to pay without touching things. There's spray cans. You can wipe down the supermarket cart, and so all of that stuff has made kind of shopping, if not more efficient, certainly more clean. Well, that's good. Number 5, safe, that's of course. Number 5, choices are shrinking after decades in which American supermarkets expanded to offer a dizzying selection of products and brands. And you know this, when you go to the water aisle and there's 200 different brands of water to choose from. It's just, it's crazy what goes on here. Anyway, they're pulling back. No more free samples, fewer specialty promotions. Shoppers intent on getting in and out quickly are sticking to items they already know. Online shoppers guided by algorithms and autofill are less likely to make impulse purchases. Blah, bitty, blah. House brands are doing super well, so that, if you're a Costco person, you get Kirkland type things. Because shoppers are buying more store brands during the pandemic, and part of that is because apparently dried beans are doing well. This is 6 months. I don't think I bought any dried beans because I'm too lazy to make them. Dried beans require that you actually kind of soak them overnight. I cook in a la menu. You know what I mean? I cooked in the minute. So I'm happy to open a can of beans. I don't need the dried ones, but they're doing super well. Number 6, the freezer is hot right now. Frozen food is another breakout. Sales jumped by 94% in March from the year earlier, according to the American Frozen Food Institute. Sales were up 15% in Costco over a year ago because of frozen food sales, which I get. Those are doing really well, but the truth of the matter is, you know it's going to last. You can pull it out any time. You know, you go to Trader Joe's, they have that frozen cauliflower gnocchi, which is hard to get your hands on. I use the frozen cauliflower rice. I have bought frozen, wonton and dumplings. So frozen food's a thing. It's a big thing. And then finally, the number 7 difference in the way that we've been shopping during this horrendous pandemic is local, is a bigger lure. So ordering a delivery of eggs and milk from the local dairy, from your beef, from your seafood, from your farm stands, it's all part of getting better, healthier, fresher, easier, etc., etc. People are saying they're not ordering food from Australia. You need to support your local people. Any way that you can do that to maintain the supply chain is critical. So even if you go to a market that sources their things from local farmers, fishermen, dairy farms, meat, all that kind of stuff. Anything that you can do that's local, that supports local, is important and helpful. Even if that means that you go into a supermarket that gets its stuff locally. So that's what's going on during the pandemic. Now, I will say that in terms of my own cooking on this subject, I tend to read and see all of the recipes that show up on different sites, whether it's, Epicurious Food and Wine, but New York Times especially, and I couldn't help but notice that, what is her name there? The fabulous Melissa Clark put up a recipe this week. Excuse me. And she said in the headline, "This is the path to perfect weeknight shrimp." I was able to get my shrimp locally. I'm not sure the shrimp come from anywhere near here, but they were wild. That was important to me, that they were wild and unfrozen. And I could be a real simpleton. You know, my cooking style is most taste, fewest ingredients, least effort. If I have shrimp and I have garlic and I have olive oil, I'm pretty much done. You know, maybe some salt and some lemon. It's all you really, really need. But anyway, Melissa Clark puts up a recipe for shrimp. Let me see if she has a name for this thing, because spiced ginger shrimp with burst tomatoes. So this is appealing to me because she's going to be using tomatoes, and I have some. And then as I look to the recipe, I see that there's garlic, so that's kind of easy. And then there's a picture, and in the picture I see some ginger, and I see some scallions, and a piece of lime, and like a dry spice. And I'm looking at this, and I'm thinking, rather than going with the usual garlic, lemon, oil, since I have some of these ingredients, let me try this. And so I end up making a shrimp dish last night that is as good as any that I've ever had. I love shrimp. I find it easy to make. It's quick to cook. I should point out that I have some local corn and some of those tomatoes in question. And so the first part of my process was that I took the corn off the cob, I cut the cherry tomatoes into half, and I sauteed them in some olive oil with nothing more than a pinch of salt. When they're cooked, nice, sweet, a little soft, lovely, maybe I threw in a piece of, I didn't throw in anything. That's all I needed. That was my base. That's the base. So the base is done. I take it out of that saute pan. I throw on some brown rice in the background. And I happen to have made the brown rice with shrimp stock. Now, you don't have to do that, but I just, I had all the shells on the shrimp. I took the shells off, and you can make a stock by taking all the shells and just putting them in some water and boiling them a bit, and you get this kind of, shrimpy water. And that's nice if you're going to make a rice dish. So instead of using the water, I use the shrimpy water. And, then when you serve it with rice, it kind of all, goes to, when you serve it with the shrimp, it all goes together. So the shrimp raw now go into a bowl into which I put in some chopped up garlic, and I have some scallion, and I have some ginger, and I have some jalapeno. Are you with me? 1 jalapeno, an inch of ginger, peeled and cut up, a garlic clove or 2, and a couple of scallions. And, that's really, you put some salt in that, and you put that on the fire, and that's plain good. But I could see that she had some dry spice in the recipe, and because I had the dry spice, I figured, fine, I'll throw that in too. Even though it's more ingredients than I usually like to work with. Up till now, it's been super easy. So what does it cost me to put in a dash of smoked paprika, which is pimentone, put in a little hit of ancho chili powder, which is lovely. Maybe it's a shot of cumin. And if you have those things, great. And if you don't, that's fine too, because there's plenty of flavor in there. But that all gets mixed up together, and it goes into that super hot pan now with a little bit of olive oil. And I tell you, the beauty of shrimp is that it cooks in like 3, 4, 5 minutes, right? Because it gets like super pink and beautiful on one side. You turn it to the other, and you're done. I mean, I'm talking about 3, 4 minutes, depending on the size of your shrimp, but that's generally all it takes. You don't want to cook it more than that. That shrimp, with all of those flavors, with 7 different high-intensity flavors, gets served over this beautiful portion of tomato and corn that you've sauteed. And there's a little rice on the side, and I happen to have in the house a little bit of basil and a touch of cilantro, a little piece of mint that goes in there. This would be on my menu if I had a restaurant, because it is amazeballs. So, farmers market. Okay, so that's that. Now let's move on to another subject here. This one is called "Let the Flavors Do the Work." Farmers market produce is at its peak. Let it shine on its own. David Tanis writes about roasted peppers with capers, olives, and anchovies. Now, this is not for everybody. This is for people that like the big flavors. Roasting peppers is a beautiful, beautiful thing. Whether you do it in the oven or whether you do it directly on a flame and peel off the skin that you have of the peppers, and then capers and olives and anchovies, it's a lot of flavor. But I'm going to skip that one and move right into, because it just looks right to me, lamb chops with green beans, corn, and zucchini. Now, again, I don't want a ton of ingredients in my cooking. I want a few things that have a lot of flavor. But I love lamb chops. I love green beans. I'm happy with corn. And sure, zucchini. So this guy puts this recipe together, and I'm thinking I could so have that. I don't even need to look at the recipe to know. He takes lamb, and it's any part of the lamb. It could be the loin, it could be a lamb rib, it could be a shoulder, it could be a leg, it could be a chop. And he takes some rosemary, sage, and garlic. Right? He chops all those things up, puts it together with the lamb, and then you pan fry that in your cast iron pan or whatever it is. You do it slowly in some extra virgin olive oil, and in the meantime, you take your green beans, your corn, and your squash, and you kind of stew them up all together. I mean, I'll have that. I'll have that anytime any place, anytime, any place. Anything else? Panna cotta, I don't care about any of that. All right, let's move on then to next subject, which is cooking fatigue. Now here we are talking about all the different things that we can make using fresh local ingredients, using simple techniques, minimizing the number of things that we put in. But I'll tell you what, 6 months of this thing, people are freaking sick of this already. I want to go out. Take me to a restaurant. Let somebody else cook for me. But cooking fatigue is affecting Americans during the pandemic, according to a study. We're just tired of this stuff already. A study of 2,000 Americans found that due to restrictions, people are eating at home and cooking an average of 9 meals a week, but Americans may be looking for more variety than they can cook on what they eat, and as a result, the average respondent has cooked the same meal 28 times since the start of COVID-19. Survey asked respondents about their relationship with cooking and healthy eating as it pertains to the ongoing pandemic. While many respondents enjoy the cooking, they sometimes wish it was less time-consuming. 7 in 10 wish that they could make a healthy dinner more quickly. Half of the respondents would prefer to cook a meal with less prep, and 43% would like to spend less time planning the meals. 40% find planning the meals every night to be tricky. In a dream world, it would take the average person 12 minutes to make a delicious, healthy meal. 2/3 of respondents are limiting their trips. We talked about that, to the grocery store. 69% of Americans can occasionally feel limited when they cook due to a lack of ingredients at home. 60% are eating less healthy. I am in that group, and than they used to, because they lack fresh ingredients. That's not my problem. And due to the lack a bit of cooking fatigue, half of the people are eating more takeout and delivery to get a little break from making dinner. 55% confess they're eating less healthy because they're getting, increased takeout and garbage food. People want delivery. They're interested in pre-made meals. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I guess it's an issue. But I like the cooking, so for me it's okay. And I got some local access. If you have local, places that you can go. And if you don't, you can get delivery. You don't have to have a shortage of ingredients because they are available to you from the delivery services. I segue here at this point into an entirely different subject. And this subject is about how to drink, according to Anthony Bourdain. I miss him. I remember where I was when I found out that he was dead. Bourdain was special. Anyway, he liked to drink, and so this particular article here is on how to drink, according to Anthony Bourdain. Here's what he said about cocktails, which I found interesting. He said, I think the Negroni is the perfect cocktail because it is 3 liquors, he said, that I don't particularly like. I don't like Campari, I don't like sweet vermouth, and I don't particularly like gin. But you put them together with that little bit of orange rind in a perfect setting. It just sets you up for dinner. In a way, it makes you hungry, sands the edges off the afternoon. In an after dinner, it's settling. It's both aperitif and digestive. A rare drink that can do that. So, the Negroni. 3 ingredients. Again, I do believe... No, I'm not going to say that they're in equal proportion. I'm going to say 2 parts of gin, 1 part of Campari, and 1 part of sweet vermouth. And do I love it? Yes. Will everybody love it? No. But yeah, it is a great cocktail. Bourdain on beer. My favorite beer, he says, is cold beer. Served quickly with minimum fuss. There's something wonderful about drinking in the afternoon. A not too cold pint, absolutely alone at the bar, even in a fake-ass Irish pub. On hangovers, Anthony said, schedule your hangover. Wake up as soon as you can. A cold Coca-Cola or Pepsi. Wash down a couple aspirin. Smoke a joint, and the joint will help you develop an appetite. At which point, you have some really spicy food. Spicy leftovers, like leftover Kung Pao chicken, would be perfect. On travel, when dealing with complex transportation issues, the best thing to do is pull up with a cold beer and let somebody else figure it out. And then he said, they're professionals at this in Russia, so no matter how many Jello shots or Jaeger shooters you might have downed at college mixers, no matter how good a drinker you might think you are, don't forget that the Russians, any Russian, will drink you under the table. Take a drink. So there you go. Whiskey, the best kind of bar, whiskey. A lot of whiskey on that guy. Well, I would say at this point, I think that we have covered most of what it was that I was hoping to speak with you about this evening, which is some product recommendations from Lay and the Orange Slice and the Gin and Tonic to the Simple Mills crackers. Some recipes, which include gazpacho, and my very favorite raw scallops, and that shrimp dish. Holy wow! That is a lot of flavor in food. We talked a little bit about what happens these days in terms of the changes in the way that we shop during the pandemic. And there's our Anthony Bourdain telling us about what to drink and what not to drink. And so I say to you, as I come to you live on this lovely September evening from the eastern coast of Long Island, New York, we got to keep cooking because we can't spend a whole ton of time going out. Most taste, fewest ingredients, least effort is the very nature of the way that I cook. It is exemplified in my cookbook known as Short Order Dad, One Guy's Guide to Making Food Fun and Hassle-Free. A very easy purchase online. And that is episode 90 of All You Can Eat. I will be back next week. If you missed last week's episode, incidentally, I interviewed Joey Campanaro, the chef owner of New York City's venerable The Little Owl restaurant, and I had a great chat with Joey for the entire time we were together here about everything from restaurants and recipes to his new cookbook and all that kind of stuff. So you can catch that on iHeartRadio by searching for All You Can Eat or Rob Rosenthal. If you're a Spotify person, you can find that right there as well, searching All You Can Eat on Spotify in the podcast section. You folks, next time around, I hope that you stay well, I hope that you eat well, and I hope you remember, life is short, so never waste a meal.
The 22-year-old virgin is in the house.
I'm the Teflon Pan Man.